Welcome back to Guitar Geekorama episode 5. We're going to be looking at our E minor pentatonic scale, but we're actually moving it up to the 12th position to play it at the higher octave. Let's take a look at that first of all before we get into some of the details of what you just heard. Okay, every note on the open string, for example E, gets repeated at the 12th fret an octave higher. So that will also be an E. So when we talk about the open strings, E, E, A, D, D, G, G, B, B, E, E. Now what that means is our E minor pentatonic scale that we were playing in the open position, we can repeat it higher up the neck here and get the same set of notes, but just sounding a lot higher in pitch. Now I'm keeping that very simple at first, and I'm just using one finger to play all the notes, but it would be more useful to start to get your little finger involved at this point as well. So here are the fret numbers. I'm playing 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 15, 12, and 15. And those of you who are really good at pattern recognition will probably see that it is that same pattern, that it's a big gap, little gap, little gap, little gap, big gap, big gap. So that's our E minor pentatonic scale, same shape, but one octave higher. What I would recommend as well is have a go with one of the backing tracks, just run that shape up and down. The advantage of this shape now is that it's got no open strings in it, so we can move it into different keys very easily. But here's that shape again, run up and down, make sure that we can see it. So that's our E minor pentatonic scale. Now at the video at the beginning, working along with the backing track, you could see that I was introducing some bends and some vibrato. So this is kind of another step that you can add into your playing to make it sound more expressive. Let's stick to the middle two strings again, these four notes. And let's look at how vibrato works. I'm on the 14th fret of the G string for an A note, and I've got my third finger there. I'm going to play the note. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wobble the note like this. Now what you can hear is this kind of like wavering sound that happens. So that's called vibrato. The advantage of this is it gives the note a bit more of a singing quality. When we hear just a note ringing, the guitar is never perfectly in tune anyway, but also it doesn't sound like a voice. When someone sings a note, quite naturally they will add vibrato into the pitch. So that's the same thing that we're going to go for on these notes. Let's try it with all four of these notes first of all. So that sound is probably more familiar to sort of rock and pop styles. You can hear, and blues of course, you could hear that type of playing. Let's zoom in on how you get that effect and how it works. What I'm doing is holding the string, holding tight onto the note, but after I've picked it initially, pulling down, then letting go, then pulling down, then letting go. And doing that quite rapidly. Takes a little bit of practice to get used to. Now you see also what I'm using is my fingers behind to make sure that this finger can concentrate on just pulling the note up and down. This finger's just giving a little bit of backup, a little bit of strength for pulling the string. So let's see that again. For the first finger, it's quite easy. As long as your thumb is anchored behind the neck, you'll be able to get those notes to sing nicely. Down on the D string. Now what we'll notice with this is straight away even simple phrases become more expressive. Can become, and it has more of a musical quality to my ear. Okay, that works across all of the notes of the scale. And usually we'll use vibrato whenever we rest on a note or we stop on a note as part of a phrase. To get that singing quality. Okay, the other technique that I threw in at the beginning of the video is bends. Now bends are probably the most expressive thing that you can do when you're taking a solo, because it's very personal to each player. The way that our fingers work is going to be different, and again adding the vibrato into those bends too. Let's just take a look at the technique first of all, and then you're going to have to spend a little bit of time experimenting with it. Again, I'll go up to that A note, the 14th fret on the G string. And what I want to do is bend this note, or stretch the string up, so that I can sound the next note in the scale, which is here. So we've got that B note there. But what I want to do is pick the A note and bend up a tone to B, like this. And hopefully you can hear. So I'm bending that note up to match the next note in the scale. It's important to have a target note in mind, otherwise your bends can sound a bit sort of like a mistake. That doesn't really sound so great, but if I'm aiming for a note, it suddenly becomes a little bit more musical. Now what I can also do with those bends is add some vibrato in. Now that's a slightly different technique. As I bend up to the note, I'm going to release and then bend back up, so super slow. We don't really want to go that extreme, so it's a very small movement. I'm kind of wobbling the string, if you like, letting go of that bend. Now vibrato, you probably need to spend, especially in applying vibrato to bends, takes a little bit of doing, so you probably want to spend a little bit more time with it, but the technique is there anyway. This is going to work on every set of notes. For now, while we are applying these bends, I want you to stick to the 3 wire strings. We'll leave the bottom 3 wound strings out of it. They're a little bit harder to bend, and they don't sound so great early on. So we're going to have these notes. Again, this note is going to bend up to the next note in the scale. That's what I'm aiming for all the time, yeah? Also, we can add in this note as well. Now, this note is a little bit confusing because we're going to have to aim for the next note in the scale, but isn't part of our initial shape. But it's still bending up a tone from G to A. Okay, let's have a little look at just bending using those 3 bends there. So we've got... Let's apply that to the backing track and see if we can put some phrases in and use those bends with a little vibrato. Here we go. Okay, good. Why don't you try copying some of my phrases here and put those bends and vibrato in. Let's keep it simple to start with. Here we go. Okay, try copying some of my phrases using bends and vibrato. Your turn. Okay, here we go. Your turn. You give it a try. Let's try those half time. Your turn. Okay. Try and copy that phrase. Okay, please take a look at the link below. You can go across to this backing track and spend a little bit more time exploring this scale by yourself, running those notes up and down, getting used to that vibrato and those bends. Next episode, we're going to introduce hammer-ons, pull-offs and slides to add in a few more expressive techniques. All right, keep playing.